Hi friends, hope you are doing well. Today I am going to reply to a question asked by a viewer, and this question is how to compare the master's degree in UK versus the US. Now many students who are aspiring for English speaking degrees, they look at these two countries, so let's compare these two today. So I'm going to compare this in terms of 7 different aspects, and then I'm going to give a summary of this particular discussion. So let's begin. Now the number one issue and the most important issue is that in UK the master's degree is typically for 1 year, and in USA it is for 2 years. And what happens with this is that there is not only a fact in terms of the amount of time, but also the cost differential is going to be there, because in UK if you finish the degree in 1 year, then essentially you have to plan for tuition for 1 year and you have to stay in UK for 1 year, whereas in US this cost will effectively get doubled. Now do keep in mind that one of the things which happens in the UK degree is that they condense the degree substantially and they try to teach you a lot of material in a very short amount of time, and also sometimes the UK degrees can be quite specialized. So I know of people who have done master's degree in fields such as nanotechnology, for example, whereas in US the degree tends to be more broad. So people often do a degree in something like material science or computer science or something like that, whereas in UK you may even be able to do a 1 year degree in data science or applied statistics or machine learning. So this is again up to the student concerned. There are many people who may not be able to afford the 2 year degree, in which case the UK 1 year master makes a good deal. Now the number two issue is about cost, and here it's a very difficult problem to actually classify. I would of course say the fact about the 1 year and 2 year degree would make a difference, but beside that you have to look at the location, you have to look at the university tuition and so on. So what happens in the US is that if you are in either of the coast, that is in the New York region or in the California region, the East Coast or the West Coast, then your costs are very high. Similarly in UK, if you are in one of the big cities such as London, then your cost is going to be very high. But if you go far out into the countryside, the cost is less. Similarly in US, if you are in the Midwest or the South, the costs are going to be much less. So you need to make an estimate based on the tuition cost and the living cost at that particular location. So do remember that the cost is primarily in terms of the rent you have to pay, and in case you are able to get some kind of hostel or hall of residence accommodation, your cost may actually come down substantially. The cost of food is typically not so high, but if you are somebody who doesn't know how to cook, then that is also going to be a substantial expense. Now let's look at the scholarship situation. Now in US there are a plethora of scholarships out there because there are a lot of research grants, and if you are a person who is doing a master's but has a desire to do a PhD, then many professors are likely to give you a scholarship in terms of a teaching assistantship or a research assistantship, and that is something which is quite widespread in the US universities because it has got a large research system. There is a lot of funding from the defense departments, from the health departments and so on, and so you can often aspire for a scholarship. Now in UK the scholarship funding is often lesser and it is almost always restricted for PhD or postdoc students, so it is harder for a master's degree student to actually get any kind of scholarship. Most of the UK people who get scholarship often tend to have a PhD degree. Now of course I should mention that there are some country specific scholarships, such as in UK you have the Chevening scholarship, you have the Rhodes scholarship, you have the Clarendon scholarship and so on, and in US you have the Fulbright scholarship, for example. So you can aspire for some of these scholarships, but these scholarships are all highly competitive. They require you to have a good CV, have a good background in terms of internship, extracurricular activities, show that you are somebody who is capable of a lot of motivation and prospective leadership in the future. Also diversity plays a role in many of these scholarships, so if you are a diverse candidate then you have a better chance here. So that was the issue about costs and scholarships. So let's now look at the number 3 issue, and that is rank. Now of course rank is something which is very important in degrees, and as you do a master's degree, rank becomes more important. So I have made a video on university rank. I will put it in the end screen, but let me tell you that the rank of the university is going to play a big role in your future. So for example, if you are in the UK, there are 2 or 3 very high ranked universities. For example, in most rankings, Cambridge and Oxford come out at top, and also Imperial College. But in the US, there are many universities which are top ranked. So often in the top 20, you will find up to 15 universities are from the US. So these are the usual names such as Harvard, MIT, Caltech, Stanford, Princeton, and so on. But there is a large number of good university in the US. So I would say in US you can get even 50 to 100 universities which are in the top ranked universities in the world. So almost every state has a state university which is top ranked. For example, if you look at University of Maryland, College Park, University of Michigan and Harbor, University of Texas at Austin, University of Washington at Seattle, and so on, you will find that almost every state has a flagship university, and this flagship university is going to be pretty good. For example, University of California, Berkeley, University of Texas at Austin, and so on. So the rank, of course, is something you should aspire to, but I would say that in terms of rank, US certainly has a big edge in terms of the better universities you can go to. Now, number 4 issue is about tests. And if you look at the US system, tests are very important in the US system. It's always been like that, and I believe that is one of the reasons why the US graduate school system is often quite superior and has produced a large number of great scientists, Nobel Prize winners, and so on. So these tests are typically the GRE and the GMAT. These tests are important whether you are doing a master's degree in any field, and the GMAT comes in useful if you are doing an MBA. Beside that, if you are a foreign student, you may be required to give the TOEFL exam. So as far as US is concerned, TOEFL is the exam to give. Now there are certain GRE subject tests also, for example in physics, math and psychology, and you can use this to demonstrate your competence further. Now one of the things I feel about research is that GRE level of competence in analytical, quantitative and verbal skills is very much required if you are going to be a good student and you are going to be a good master's degree student. So again, that's my personal view. Your mileage may vary. Now if you look at the UK, the requirement is generally only in terms of English language, and these are the IELTS or TOEFL score. Here I see often that the IELTS is preferred by many universities. Now do remember that some universities are going to actually waive tests and so on, but I would tell you that there is nowadays a system by which there are many universities which just want to get international students and take that tuition and give them humdrum degrees out there. So be careful of this kind of degree mill situation, because ultimately the degree is only a piece of paper, and you have not learned a lot during this process, then you do not benefit much from the degree. So in fact, a lot of the learning from the degree comes in because you already have a good level of knowledge so that you can take advantage of the degree. So the fact that various tests are being required, high GPA is being required, is something which means that the university is actually going to teach the subject at a sufficiently high level that it is going to be useful. So if you are somebody who is studying Masters of Science in data science or computer science or information system or applied statistics or any field, I am sure you will understand that a reasonable competence in mathematics is going to be required if you are going to do well in any of these disciplines. Now the next point is about grading. And in the US system, what happens is that your grades are spread throughout the work done during the semester. So it is based on the homeworks you do, it's based on various quizzes which are given out in the class, the midterms and the final. Very often the final grade is not too much, it may be 20 to 30% of the course, and there are some professors who even skip the final exam, so they may give a lot of weight on the various quizzes they hold, the homeworks they hold, and very often there is a project in every course. So do keep in mind that you have to do these projects, and also remember that plagiarism is very much frowned upon. So whether you are in the US or the UK, if you are asked to write a term paper, you have to do this particular thing yourself. Now the next issue is going to be about work, and if you are in the US system, then what you can do is that you can work up to 3 years and you can essentially do a practical training here if you are on the F1 visa. And what this can help you do is that it can help you get experience in various top companies in the system and so on. Now if you are a non-STEM major, you can only work for 1 year, so this is something you need to keep in mind. Now in case you are in the UK, you can work up to 2 years there and you can actually spend some time doing various jobs and so on. But one of the things about the UK system is there is a lot of complexity. The UK government is increasingly cracking down on visas, and also it doesn't encourage dependents to come in. So if you are a student in US, if you get an F1 visa, very likely if you have a spouse, they can get the F2 visa and so on. So these things may be more difficult in the UK system. But do remember that in the US system, one of the things which is required is that you should leave the country if you do not get a job. So essentially you have up to 60 days to get a job after you have finished your degree. So in case you are not able to get a job in 60 days, you have to exit the country. To the best of my knowledge, that is not something which is immediately required in the UK. Finally, the seventh point is something which is very important and many people do not consider, and that is the size of the economy and the various companies themselves. So what happens in the US is that the US is a very large business system, and therefore there are a plethora of companies out there which can give you a job. So what you can do is you can try for interns in these companies, you can try for jobs in these companies by using the F1 practical training and so on, and you can actually aspire to work in companies such as Google, Microsoft, and so on. Now in UK the number of companies is much less, and therefore the playing field which you have is substantially lesser. One more thing you should remember, in case you are a foreign student and you have to go back to your home country, almost all the US top countries which are in the top Fortune 100 and so on have branches in various countries around the world, especially in big countries such as India, China, and so on. Therefore what happens is that even if you are not able to get a job in US, you can get a job back in your home country and you can work there. So I know of people who finished their degrees in the US, they were not able to get jobs, but they were able to return to Bangalore or Hyderabad, and they were able to get jobs in companies such as Microsoft and Google. So this is something which is very easy to do, because if you have a US degree, the US companies will always have a soft corner for you and they will want to give you that job. So that's something which is certainly going to help you substantially. So this was my take about the degree patterns here. I was talking about the Master of Science degree here. If you are planning to do the MBA, that's a completely different concept, but if you are planning to do a Master of Science degree, these are the possibilities: the 2-year US degree or the 1-year UK degree, and then you have to consider the remaining aspects which I mentioned in today's video. I hope this video is useful to you, and I will see you in a video sometime soon. See you then.